All right, great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tipple's Tuesday Wine of the Week tasting. Thank you for joining Elizabeth and Jeff Beaudre, the owners of Tipple's Brews and Wines in Gainesville, Florida. This week, we're going to enjoy the Obsidian Ridge Cabernet Sauvignon from Lake County, California. Where's Lake County? We'll find out.
I know where it is in Florida, but not in California.
It's well named. I'll go with that. Okay, so for now, if you have not already done so, please open your bottles, pour yourself a delicious glass of vino. Appropriate starting temperature on this wine is, around 60, 65 degrees. That would be just a little above European cellar temperature of 55, where it would age. I know in Florida, we're used to drinking at our home temperature, 70, 75, which is fine. I mean, it's going to get there anyway, but I always like to start just a little cooler and then let it warm up and it'll express even more.
You decanted this one.
I did decant this one. It's a big Cabernet Sauvignon. So okay. I did decant this week.
You did decant.
I did decant.
Okay,
I can't deny it.
So why would you decant as opposed to just open and pour?
It's got big tannins. It's a big wine, and I wanted us to get to where it would relax a little bit and give us some of the secondary flavors that I'm looking forward to enjoying with this wine. So I did, with the experience I have with this wine, I did give it a little extra breath of fresh air.
Okay, so if somebody didn't decant it, do you have any suggestions for them?
Yeah, just swirl. It'll be fine. Okay. Swirl it in your glass. Most of the time I skip it.
Take a straw, blow bubbles in it.
Yeah, exactly. But just give it a swirl. It'll be fine. It will open up. It just might take another 10 minutes or so. It's not going to be a night and day difference.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
Jeff, quick question.
Yes.
We got one of these gadgets, like a speedy decanter, like you pour it bubbles through. How well do these things work?
They help just like decanting. They do the exact same thing. Okay. So in this case, when you pour it through there into your glass and give it a swirl, you're getting a very similar effect. It's not an instantaneous one, which is why sometimes people debate back and forth on how useful they are, but it will absolutely reduce the time it takes to get your wine to open. They definitely help. It's not instantaneous where some people say, oh, well, if it's not instantaneous, what's the point? But if it knocks 10 minutes off of your wait, why not? But yeah, it's not a miracle worker, but it does help.
But it's just the same as decanting.
Right. Decanting is not a miracle worker.
Okay.
It just helps accelerate what's going on.
Okay.
And it is a very similar effect. If you're going to use an aerator and swirl or decant, you're essentially doing the same thing.
Yeah, the aerator is a Venturi fall. You can hear the air being sucked in as the wine goes by.
Yeah, and it just gives it that little micro bubbles into it to give some oxygen contact to as much of that wine as possible. Or if you pour it into a decanter and splash it around, you're essentially doing the same thing. Just give that guy a breath of fresh air, and it is a big wine this week. Thank you for that question. It's a good one. Let's go ahead. Let's look at the pairing. So we'll jump over to the opening slide real quick, and then we'll come back and discuss what we're smelling and tasting. All right, here we are. I actually thought it was a lot of fun that I was including a wine that has kind of a split decision on wine ratings, because here we have a 93 point from Wine Enthusiast and Wine Spectator. Here they are head to head, calling it an 87. 87 is not a bad review, but it's a pretty big spread compared to what we normally see.
93 is a pretty spectacular review.
Right, yeah. If you're bumping up above 91, you're really getting into some rarefied air. And at 87, you're basically saying, this is a very good wine, rather than rarefied air. So I think it'd be fun for us to kind of think about that and think of what our opinion is. I actually have a slide which will look at what their exact written reasons were, which I thought would be good. But we'll get to that, kind of toward the end. Mostly, I want us all to just begin to think about what you think about this wine. That is the most important part. Food pairings for this big, wonderful California Cab.
Well, it's 87 to 93. I mean, it's pretty wonderful. We can call it that, but we won't quantify like specifically,
right?
Like which one you think.
True.
Right. Not yet.
Not yet. All right. So steak, portobello mushroom, meatloaf. burgers, bacon burgers. I mean, this guy can handle the meats. That's the bottom line on this. Cheese plate or chocolat. You can go all the way down there. That's right. I see Jerry has some chocolate. And let's jump back to the video screen. We'll talk about our initial impressions.
Okay.
This is 96% Cab, 2% Petit Verdot, and 2% Malbec. The Petit Verdot and the Malbec in this case are going to be kind of to give it a little more roundness. We're talking about a very muscular, intense Cabernet Sauvignon to start. And so they're just trying to take a little of the edge off. That can be done with blending. That can also be done with barrel. In this case, we'll see later on what they do with their barreling system, why they chose to do it with the blending, with a little softer, rounder grapes. Alcohol content's pretty hefty, 14.6 on this guy. So it's, you know, bigger on the alcohol. It's big on tannins, kiwi, yes. So let's get in here. Let's take a sniff, take a sip. It's a big wine, grippy, jumps on there. So, lots of black cherry, getting a blueberry, kind of a tobacco quality.
Oh, sure.
There's a really nice minerality on this wine, and which goes with it. It's on, to me, I get it on the back part of the sip. So
yes,
you get the fruit coming in, it dries out, you get kind of a tobacco quality, and then you get to the minerality, which is kind of a graphite expression, a little bit of a pencil lead expression, which is very common with the way Cabernet Sauvignon expresses minerality. The minerality, in this case, expressing through the grape, but originating in the soil. This is a high mineral content location, which we will discuss the location in a little bit on there.
So as it opens up more,
yes,
will you get less of the, like, I feel not overwhelmingly, but that like puckering feel.
Right. It will somewhat. It's going to be a tannic wine.
It, so yeah.
This is going to be a muscular tannic wine.
Okay.
You know, that's why all those big beef dishes, you know, get something with a little bit of fattiness.
You need something to compete with it.
Right. And then because what will happen is the reason these types of wines work so well with a big beefy dish is because when your palate begins to get coated with a little bit of those fats, then the tannins keep it clean. And at the same time, the wonderful bonus is they blend together as they're being stripped from your palate and give you wonderful additional flavors.
Okay.
So. I'd give it a little bit of a peppercorny kind of quality to it too.
Yeah.
I realize there's a lot of big fruit on this, and I'm talking about a lot of the nuance very quickly, but I do like that that's there. Kind of when you get to this really dark side of it, and you move into the minerality, baker's chocolate, you know, like a kind of a bitter chocolate. Yeah. Which can go hand in hand. Some people will call it baker's chocolate. Some people will call it a coffee flavor.
Okay.
Both right.
Baker's chocolate, I'm getting more than coffee.
I would go there a little bit more too. Though whichever way you're feeling it, that is that same expression. That's the same part of the grape.
Okay.
So like one of the things I like about this, so we had some Washington State, and we will drink more Washington State wines during the year. When we enjoyed the Battle of the Syrahs, where we did the Washington State Syrah versus the Australian Shiraz, right? One of the things you get from Washington State is its volcanic soil minerality creates this wonderful big fruit expression. But in their case, the way their wines finish is kind of with because it's volcanic, but in Washington State, it's a valley, right? And so it's the Columbia Valley floor. So warm, you know, kind of warm and easygoing in that area. In this case, we're on a mountain. So this adds, so mountainside, hillside grown grapes are more intense in a muscular style. So what I loved about this is we're getting volcanic soil richness and minerality with that what is kind of like a throwback to Napa Valley muscularity on there. And this is kind of a combination of the two, which I found to be rather unique. And what a wonderful way to look at, this is from, Lake County, to say, okay, there's some really well-grown Cabernet Sauvignon available in California, from California. It doesn't have to have Napa Valley in front of it.
Okay.
Not that I'm against Napa.
No.
But they can be pricey.
Right.
And like I said, we talk about this guy, on sale this week, we got in the sub $30. And this, to me, drinks more like a $50, $60 Napa Cab.
Yeah.
All right.
What is it when it's not on sale?
35.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's still significantly percentage-wise less than $50, $60.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's jump over to the slides.
Okay.
Thanks. All right.
Next.
Yes, please. All right. So I kind of switched it up. I know I normally go right into the map and then drill down. And I thought, well, we're already talking about the grape. Let's talk about the grape. So Cabernet Sauvignon, the world's most popular grape.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yep. And you guys have seen, Wine Folly, I'm sharing a Wine Folly. Thank goodness for them. Wonderful educational site. Go explore there all day long. They are fantastic. Almost all red wine grapes look the same. I mean, here we are. Is that Malbec? Is it Cab?
Yeah.
Is it Nero d'Avola? Who knows? But anyway, there's the Cab grape and the general color that we're talking about there. Usually more garnet, unlike Malbec, which has got a little more purple cast. So we're talking about a nice garnet color, which this is intense and dark, but it is definitely on the garnet side. Much more of a red than a purple. And I find that the flavors, I get a little bit of a blueberry thing going on, but generally it's black cherry. It tends to be maybe a plum.
Right.
So I get more redness in general from a Cab versus, say, something like a Malbec or a Mourvedre, which is the same as Monastro.
So I have a question going back to you saying the Cab grape is the most popular grape in the world. Is that true of like, it's the most popular grape in Europe and in like Australia, or is it because we as a country drink overwhelmingly Cab when we drink reds that we just kind of trounce all over? Okay.
I love that you asked this question. Let's take a look.
Okay. Did not know this was coming next.
This is awesome. This is why we are such a great team. So Cabernet Sauvignon growth. All right. So here we have it by country. So we have number one, France, because they're ranked in order on the side. Chile edges out the United States with Cabernet production as number 2 to France. Now I expected France to be the number 1. Those,
looks like it barely edges us out there.
Barely. It's incredibly close.
Yeah, pretty darn close there.
But and then you have Australia, Spain, China. By the way, I actually have a rep bringing me some Chinese wines.
Oh, that's right. You said that.
Yeah, I thought it was this week. It did not happen.
Okay.
Anyway, soon enough. Soon enough, we'll get it. Perhaps if it works out well.
Sure.
If they taste as good as they have a great reputation. From the Himalayas. That sounds intriguing. Anyway, back to this
one.
So Spain, which a lot of that is, well, I mean, it'll be a bit throughout, but Priorat has a lot of those Bordeaux varietals. We had that one that was a Syrah Cab blend. Yeah. So anyway, so here's the answer to your thing. Yes, it's grown throughout the world, which is why it is number 1.
Okay.
Because almost every area that grows any decent amount of wine grows Cab.
Grows Cab.
Yeah.
Is it easy to grow?
It is not the easiest, but it is the easiest to sell. So
okay.
They put it in the work.
There you go.
It's not like Pinot Noir, though. It's not nearly as difficult as that.
Okay.
Jeff, are there any like stats for whether it's being used for like just a Cab or being used in like a red blend or something like that? Because I know Cabs are often used in blends.
Sure. Now, I haven't seen those stats, which would break up how much is used one way and how much is exclusively single varietal. You can look at the different countries, say France, blend, Chile, single varietal and blends, US, single varietal and blends, Australia, single varietal and blends. Spain, blends almost exclusively. Very little single varietal. China, honestly, got to work on that one. That's a new one for me. Argentina, both almost 50-50, like single varietal and blends. Italy, generally blends because we're talking about Super Tuscans for the most part, which is that blend. Some single varietal. I have one I have my eye on for us to drink soon. It's delicious. So it changes according to the style of the country, and every country does have their own style, which is great.
So let me ask you a question. When you say single varietal, does the definition of that truly mean just one grape, or could they have some, like this one is 96%?
That is an absolutely fantastic point. Very, very good point. This is a single varietal wine that does have some other in it.
Okay, so what's the percentage?
It changes per area.
Okay.
All right. So yeah. So every area defines it. Even within the United States, California defines it differently from Washington State, and it changes the percentage. Some of it will be 75%. Some of it will be 80. 75%
could be counted as single varietal, because I was thinking 90 is like.
Oh yeah, no,
Wow.
It can be as low as 75%. So
I mean, it's overwhelmingly that grape.
Sure.
But.
Exactly. So it depends. It depends on where it's being grown. So on that definition, but you're right. So making Robin's question even more difficult to answer on there, which is, yes, there are 100% cabs made in the United States, but the majority have some other in it. Okay. So, and then where do you throw that?
You answered it perfectly. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a sip on that one right there.
We love statistics in this class.
Yes.
Is there one, not to completely derail this, but is there one varietal that is like, or what varietals are on the easiest side to grow? If like Pinot is very difficult and struggles a lot, like I didn't know, like because Malbec is so common as a mixing grape, for instance, is that easier to grow, or?
Here's another thing, as with most answers in wine, it
depends.
So it depends, because you could say, for example, let's take Pinotage. All right, Pinotage is a grape that was developed to very easily grow a lot of grapes for you to utilize. But if you grow it for volume, it often does not taste very good. So that was their downfall. So you get to where, okay, so now we had some really nice Pinotage. Southern ripe Pinotage was delicious. We had it as one of our wines, but they have to really pull back on the volume that they produce in order to produce good grapes. So there is an ebb and flow. The extremes seem to be the ones that stand out the most, which is, Pinot Noir is kind of universally difficult to grow. Chardonnay is a little more flexible, but it changes a lot in its expression. So you can make a warm growth Chardonnay and you're going to get all these tropical mango, overripe pineapple and papaya notes, or you can pull way back as if, if you're in Burgundy in France with a cool growth Chardonnay with a much lower production amount, but it gives you that chalky minerality and zingy, fresh acidity along with green apple notes and pear, and it's a very different expression. So there's a give and take as you go back and forth in there. You can grow a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon poorly, or you can grow less Cabernet Sauvignon really, really well. So that's, I think, because that's the long, detailed version of it depends.
Jeff, I got a question.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to struggle to verbalize this. Does that have to do with how much of the grapes they're actually sifting through and choosing the best grapes for quality, as opposed to just putting everything in the mix? You know what I mean? Is it a quality control, just choosing top line grapes?
A lot of it comes from dropping grapes early. So what will happen is one of the common techniques to create better grapes is they'll go in and they will snip out up to 2/3 of the grapes that are in production on the vines in order to give the vine's best to what is left. And so you're dropping a ton of grapes that you could technically make wine out of. It wouldn't be the best wine, but you could make some money off of it. And you're leaving them on the ground to rot. I mean, obviously in a very juvenile form, they weren't fully ripened, otherwise there would be no point. But they snipped them off early. So a lot of that is thinning the grapes in order to create better grapes. Yeah. And then other things are stressing the vines in a way in which they produce fewer grapes to begin with. That happens a lot, especially in the extremely arid areas of Spain. I mean, those grapes, they're in the middle of a desert plateau. It's like, there are skulls on the ground next to them, and these guys are making beautiful wine for us to drink. So.
Yeah, we say it a lot. The better grapes, you have to make them struggle.
Right.
Otherwise,
you start with a struggle, which will reduce the amount of grapes that they're going to produce, and then a lot of times, if you want better grapes, you reduce the amount of grapes they're even producing at that level. So.
The plant can put more energy toward the fewer grapes.
Yeah.
Then. Okay. Would you like for me to?
Please. Moving to the next.
Advance. Okay.
All right. Cabernet Sauvignon, primary flavors that are common. All right. So black cherry, black currant, cedar, baking spices, and graphite. So the fruit side is going to come from the fruit. The cedar is a combo kind of fruit and barrel.
Okay.
The baking spices, that is kind of a play between fruit and barrel as well. And then the graphite is going to be that minerality that is being grown in the soil, expressing itself through the grape. The dry Cabernet Sauvignon is dry. I mean, I've never had a sweet one. You could.
Really?
I've never had one. Yeah, you could just ferment it differently and cut off fermentation early and leave a bunch of sugar left in there.
Huh.
I mean, it starts out sweet.
Yeah.
I would imagine maybe there's a late harvest sweet cab somewhere. I have not seen one, but
there's no demand for that. Nobody's making that.
Hey, you know what? Maybe I want one.
So if I just memorize these things and start saying this anytime we have a cab, you're gonna be like, oh yes.
I mean, I'm just so impressed. Yes. Like, oh, she's learning. You've learned a lot. You've learned a ton. So full-bodied, that's normal. You know, they're normally big wines. Medium high tannin. I would say like the way that looks is medium high, as if you're like, and I know that there are some more tannic grapes out there, but I would call it medium to high. And then I would say this should be listed as something that goes to high tannin, and that there's also very high, where you would go to Tannat and a few other grapes out there, but not much really exceeds Cab by all that much.
With tannic.
Yeah. Acidity, it's usually medium acidity. I mean, I've had some that are low acid, but you're right. Medium is a good call. It's not normally a very tart, wine. And 13.5 to 15% ABV seems pretty spot on to me.
Sure. And this one's 14.6, you said?
14.6, right in there.
Except for Jerry's. He's got a 15.6.
That's right. Jerry with his very special bottles. I don't know how that happened.
How did you know?
Yeah.
Right. So, by the way, Cabernet Sauvignon, I know we talked about this before, but I think when we hit it, and thankfully we're getting some new viewers, was created by crossbreeding in France, Cabernet Franc with Sauvignon Blanc. So this is the child of a red grape and a white grape that became an even redder grape.
Yeah. Somehow
in that process, which is fascinating because Cab Sauv is definitely more intense and even more red than Cab Franc.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's like ligers. They're bigger than the lion and the tiger, right? Aren't they bigger?
Well, I know there's
the Tyon.
And the Tygon is one way or another.
I don't know.
I can't remember.
The offspring is bigger. Would you like for me to advance this?
Yes, please. All right. So let's talk about now, where are we? Where in the world is Obsidian Ridge? All right. So we're heading over to California in the United States. So we're right about here. So pretty much right in the middle of the latitude of growth. So nothing shocking there so far.
Near St. Louis Obispo.
Yes,
North
north
of
of,
there.
because it's, here we go, we'll show you.
Okay.
So here we are in California. It's actually up here on the north coast.
Oh.
It is north of Napa. It is
Okay.
attached to the top of Napa.
Okay.
So we'll go in here. So within Californian wine growing,
Mm-hmm.
we have the north coast, and here's Clear Lake. This is the area. So you see, here's Napa, here's Sonoma,
Mm-hmm.
and we are attached to the top of Napa right there. This zooms in a little bit more because here's Napa, Sonoma, and Clear Lake, and which is, we're in Lake County.
Okay.
Lake County is named for Clear Lake.
It's a big lake.
It is the largest natural freshwater lake in California. They have a larger one, but it was man-made as a
Okay.
reservoir. Going into the soil types. So we're talking about, in this case, volcanic. So very little loam. Loam would be the more nitrogen-rich, potting soil type stuff.
Mhm.
Mostly clay, and a combination really on the sand is, in this case, because we're in volcanic
Mhm.
volcanic soils and literally obsidian rocks. So let's take a look. Here it is.
Is
Look at
that why they named it Obsidian?
Shocker, right? But look at this. They actually have chunks of obsidian
That's crazy.
in their volcano. I mean, I think that's kind of cool. I mean,
Yeah.
obsidian's kind of badass.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's very
fast
cool.
draining,
Mhm.
incredible high minerality. The obsidian, I know it's in chunks, but obviously there's powdered obsidian running around in that clay, which really does help to give a great character to what's grown there. What a great growing region. I think it's fantastic. So like I said, it borders, it's on the northern tip of Napa, volcanic soil, hot, dry summers, regularly 90 plus degrees, can hit 100 degrees on rare days, very
But
dry.
it's a dry heat.
It
so
is a
it's
very
fine.
dry heat, yes. Mild, moist winters. They do frost and even occasionally get a little bit of snow, but it's not until after growing season is well over.
Okay.
So it doesn't threaten them, and there's no moisture issues. So we talked about this from down in Sonoma as
Mhm.
well. When you have a dry summer, you can leave the grapes on the vine without worrying about a late season rain diluting the power of those grapes. So they get a long hang time. They get to pull a lot of character from the soil. Their high altitude, so we're talking about 2,600 feet above sea level. The additional thinness of the atmosphere up there intensifies the UV rays, thickens the grape skins, gives you more oomph in that. You've got thicker skins, you've got more going on for tannins and flavor. Also, they still are getting Pacific winds because they're so high up there. So wind also thickens the grape skins. And this is, I think, without a doubt, a very tension powerful wine. It's kind of a wound up spring, which is why I actually decanted it.
So can you age this then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Good question. So we have a combination, not so much big acidity. Acidity can help things age longer. All right. No on that one,
Mhm.
but higher alcohol. Yes.
Mhm.
Higher tannins and, really kind of wound up tight. Yes. So we're talking about a wine that could age, should easily be able to go about 10 years.
Okay.
Though it's interesting. Some people think that because of the richness of the fruit,
Mhm.
if there's kind of an opinion that you should drink this with the tension and enjoy it for what it is.
Oh, okay.
So yes, you can.
Mhm.
But what I like about this wine also is if you like a nice, tight, big, kind of burly red, this is your guy because you're getting good fruit.
Mhm.
You're not just getting, because if you had something that really wasn't ready, you would have acid with tannin and
Mhm.
not a lot to enjoy.
Okay.
And this guy isn't. You've got the really nice, enjoyable fruit on it
Mhm.
with that muscly tension.
So this is a 2017, so it could go to 2027.
Yeah.
But it would relax some. It wouldn't feel.
Right. It would relax,
As
and you don't want
burly.
it to jump
Jump the shark?
Jump the shark. to where the fruit begins to fall off.
Okay.
So this guy, more of a 7-year guy,
Okay.
you know,
Mhm.
something like that.
So 2024.
Yeah, I would go more like 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll see. Some people maybe disagree with me, but that's what I would do. All right, next. Okay, so let's talk about, we talked about where it's from. Obsidian Ridge Winery began by Michael Tyrion, Peter Molnar, and Arpad Molnar. I'm pretty sure, and we'll see why, that Molnar is a Hungarian name.
Ah.
They directly control the wine growing, the vinification, but also the cooperage,
Oh,
which I think is really cool. So they make their own barrels.
that's really neat.
Yeah. All right, so that was kind of different. They actually own their own barrel production, their cooperage company in Hungary,
Oh,
which
okay.
is
Why do you
hence
think
my
it's
guess about
right?
that Molnar is a Hungarian name. So, sustainable farming practices and sustainable production. Here's the location. So you can see this is a dormant volcano, and this is the actual winery.
So pretty.
And so here's Obsidian Ridge. Once again, a different view.
Mhm.
You can't see it as well here, but this is the Obsidian Ridge. That right there is all rocks.
Oh.
It's before these trees.
Mhm.
It kind of goes back down after it. This is a ridge where like they can't even plant grapes here. It's just an obsidian cap. And there's the obsidian just
Wow.
pulled right out of the field. Their first vintage was released in 2002, so
Fairly young.
fairly young. This is the first group that's owned and created this location. They thought it was unusable for wine. They had, when they got there were basically defunct hickory trees
Huh.
where people had just tried a little something and no one had found any real good use for the land. And they said, no, you're wrong. We're going to get this right. So, and I think they were very right. I love what they're producing here.
Mhm.
They age in Hungarian oak. So we've talked a lot about you can age in U.S. oak
Mhm.
or French oak.
French oak.
Hungarian is the other one.
Okay.
Hungarian combines a little bit of both. So French oak tends to be pretty neutral and just puts a minor touch on your wine, softening it, a little bit of a kind of a toastiness, right? Maybe a little spice, mostly spice. US is a very open cell.
Vanilla.
Open cell, get lots of vanilla,
Mhm.
lots of toast, a little bit of dill
Okay.
and coconut. It can be very expressive.
Oh.
Hungarian is the tightest wound, the tightest of them all, but it's very aromatic. So you get more spice, but it doesn't round out and force your tannins to relax. It doesn't mess up your acidity by putting in a bunch of oaky coconut in, that kind of a thing in there, which I think is a great way to kind of take a moment and think about what they wanted to express. And, you know, are we getting more? I think we still have a very muscular wound up wine, but we've got a really nice spicy quality going on in there.
On the back end, the spices.
And the nose, as it's had some time, has some nice kind of a spice floral note to it in addition to the fruit.
I think what's actually kind of crazy about this is that, like, unlike a lot of California cabs, this isn't that heavy, like vanilla,
right?
Happening, you know, like just at a glance, like you just handed me a glass, it's like, hey, I'm drinking this. This is interesting. Take a sip. My immediate thought wouldn't be, oh, it's a California cab. I'd be like, oh, this is interesting. What is it? Almost the point, like, I know I mentioned Malbec earlier, but almost the point, I'm like, oh, it's like a Malbec. It's like really peppery and spicy and, you know, bold and all those other good things. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah,
I'm glad you like it. I really like that it is a different expression. It really is, because you're right. It's not where you just say, you know, we just had a red blend. What did we just drink? That everyone loved it, but it had all the vanilla. It was that American oak expression, and it's delicious. I mean, I'm good with all that. I'm not against it, but I like playing around with what else is available.
Sure.
And so it's a way, it's like almost in the winemaking, it's almost a bit more old world Bordeaux in style,
Oh, sure.
but with so much fruit forwardness, you can't go anywhere but new world. So it's this really cool bridge wine, which is why I talk about, Washington State meets Napa Power. Really, it's more like Washington State meets Bordeaux austerity. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like it.
No, I get it.
Okay.
It's-
Yeah, that was great. That the Bordeaux. The thing I get that no one's talked about yet is I get a licorice anise, almost sambuca quality.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, that's really come on now that it's opened up. When I was talking about spices, I hadn't gotten there. I'm so glad you did, because I don't like it when I throw everything out. There's definitely like an anise quality that's coming out. And that's that whole playing around between the minerality and the Hungarian. And I think it's delicious. I really like that quality, because I get it sometimes and it just makes me happy. And hopefully it made you guys happy too. So like I said, they use, it's called Tokaj oak. Tokaj is the region in Hungary where they get it. This is the Cooperage facility. They believe it's all sustainably produced over in Hungary as well. They're not just like, hey, we're in Hungary, not in California. Cut it all down. They are really taking care of things in both locations. And Tokaj actually makes a lot of the wine. They make wine in Tokaj as well, but it's not always. But they're most famous for a sweet wine called Royal Tokaj, which is very sweet. It's got a lot of character. I guess at some point I'm gonna have to start doing some
very
dessert wines
sweet,
too.
like port.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
It's in that port style. It's big dessert wine.
Yeah. Every time you suggest to do that, though, I'm like, oh, because I'll have this much of it, and then I'll be done.
More for me.
Yeah, but I understand with our tastings, we'd be pretty boring if we did the same thing every week, like the same style.
Sure.
Every single week.
Exactly.
So.
Would you be surprised to know that we have some in our collection?
That would not surprise me.
No, not at all.
Somehow not at all. So let's see. Oh, and look at this. So I thought this was I love this picture. This is on their California property up on top of the mountain
600 years
600-year-old massive oak.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It looks like a hand reaching out from the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a stunning, beautiful oak.
Like that.
Right. So, and luckily as Coopers, they didn't look at it and say, oh my gosh, think about the barrels we could make.
Right.
From
Well,
that.
I was worried that the next picture was it.
Here are the barrels.
It's spelled, and
No. They're very proud to protect the tree.
That's good.
So here's the tasting room. The tasting room, as far as I could see, because it looked a little confusing, but it looks like the tasting room's in Sonoma.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not at the actual location, but they do allow you to come to the winery. They call it Winery Adventures.
Okay.
You can do a horseback ride through the vineyards and all kinds of things. So they are definitely open to people coming to visit. It looked like a blast.
Maybe they just wanted to be part of all the traffic in Sonoma.
Yeah, I think it probably made it easier for them to get people to taste
To get some attention.
But yeah, they're definitely open to having you stop by. The Winery Adventures. I want to go on a winery adventure.
Absolutely.
That sounds good. All right, so here we go. So here are the different things written by the critics, right? So the first guy, right, 93 points. Age-worthy cab, like I was saying, 2025 to 2035. So we're talking about 15 years on this guy, which I happen to agree with. I like his aromas of tamarind and tobacco. I'm like, what is tamarind? All right, I was thrown, didn't know what it was. It's an African tree. It's in Africa, India, and Pakistan that grows these they're legume type edible seeds. They look like peanuts hanging from a tree.
Okay.
But I'm like, dude, you are really reaching on that one.
Yeah.
Man. Come on. Anyway, no one knows what that is. Its flavors: blueberry, black cherry, dark chocolate, aged in Hungarian barrel. So there we go. So 25 to 35. I happen really to agree with that. I pulled back a little bit with the last guy's thing, but anyway. Willie Wong talks about it pleasing. He gave it 91 points, right? Rewarding drinking
Still
experience.
says black
Excellent.
fruit, graphite, oak.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy with grilled beef and all that. So then we go to the spectator guy, which I honestly don't see, like exuberant plum sauce, warm cherry puree, while melted with licorice. So we're talking about anise.
Anise.
We're on that. We've had that. Dark pudding notes. All right. We've had the baker's chocolate. A singed mesquite element comes out in the finish. I'm assuming that's where the disparity comes from. And I honestly, anyone else getting where that is? I don't get that one. I have not experienced that. And then he says drink now through 2022, which is just next year. And I don't feel that this guy's coming to the end of its life at all.
Sure.
So that's where his thing is. Maybe you guys agree with him, which is fine. But that I think is what the difference is
Right.
on those ratings.
He had a fight with his wife before he did this. And so now it it affected. He still liked it, but he was a little bit angry.
Maybe. I mean, I don't get the singed mesquite quality.
I'm not getting that either, but.
Because I've just had some Rhone Syrah, all right? We're talking about wines that incorporate like Boston butt and like a bacony quality to them. I can taste that. I'm just not getting it here. I don't quite know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really getting it. But.
Jeff?
Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can raise my hand here. Brian. So, hey, so I'm looking at these, and the Wilford says that they tasted it March 31st, 2020. The other two don't have dates on when they did their tastings, and I'm wondering, do they look at each other's tastings? And
they're not supposed to. Like that shouldn't be the point. The point should be what this person thinks of the wine independently. So it should not be. It wouldn't have been at the same time, but probably within the same year.
Well, too, if they have to submit it to be judged, right?
Right.
So I would think you'd submit it to all these places at the same time.
Yes.
So it should be within like a reasonable amount of time from one another.
I agree. Yeah. Because it's submitted by the winemaker. Here you go. Please give us a rating.
Sure.
Tell us what you think. Then they hold their breath and hope that it's good. And generally they did get what they were hoping for. But I do like that, it's like things can taste different to other people.
Sure.
But I think your point is it more has to do with what's happened that day. What did you eat last? How were you feeling?
I'll see it.
It's not common to see an aberration like this, see that 6-point spread.
Chris and Robin have their hand up.
Okay.
I'm trying to utilize this now.
Thank you. No, that's perfect. I use it in my classroom all the time. It's great. And it pulls you when you have the participants list, it actually pulls you to the top of the list.
Yeah.
So you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that you have to pay to get it submitted for review, correct?
Right.
Do you have to pay more to get it reviewed by more magazines or more raters?
You have to pay for each one.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They're all independent entities.
Can you pick and choose like who you are? So like you can pick and choose who you're submitting it to then?
Oh, absolutely. They choose. Yep.
Okay.
So if they had a one of these wine raters that they felt like, okay, this person tends to like wines like this, I'm going to submit it to this person.
I would.
Yeah.
If somebody was a Pinot Noir specialist, I would not send them my big California cab.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do the wine reviewers get like blacklisted then? So like the person who was like chicken fat, then is it like I'm never gonna work with this person ever again. You are dead to me. Goodbye. Like, is that?
I don't know for a fact. I would say that if I were the winemaker and I put it out to 4 locations, right? Let's say, and I got a 92, a 91, a 90, and an 86. Yeah, I would not send another bottle to the 86 guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are looking at who they're sending it to. So yeah, and that's why, that's my thing is it's like, all right, take it as a point of information, but think about what you like about wines and give it a shot. Honestly, you have this guy, I do have people that come to the store and they don't want to drink anything under 90 points. And honestly, all day long, I would drink this cab. I think it's absolutely a delicious cab. So,
well, I was going to say because in 86 and 87 isn't a bad rating. It's just, it's not what a 93 is.
Right.
I mean, a 93 is almost exponentially.
Right.
better.
Well, let's look at here we go. So when we're talking about 93, we're talking about an outstanding wine of superior character and style. And, in 87, we're talking about a very good wine with special qualities. Nothing wrong with being a very good wine with special qualities. I agree. But that's a significant step different from an outstanding, in fact, almost to the top of outstanding.
Right. So that 95 to 100 level there. I mean, I'm thinking there's not going to be anything lower than a $60 bottle of wine that is going to.
Oh, it happens.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It happens.
Okay.
I mean,
so of course, then they get that rating and suddenly
Tis true.
Yeah, they bump up their price.
Oh my gosh. And there's nothing like, or a vintage with a 100-point rating to drive everything up 30 to 50 bucks a bottle.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It happens for sure. I could name names, but I won't.
Don't. Keep that to yourself.
Oh. But anyway, so like I said, normally things are pretty tightly clustered. You got everything 91, 93. I thought it was fun to have one that had an 87 out there. I thought, well, that's intriguing. So let's get to the point where we ask, what are you guys thinking? How are you feeling on this guy that has kind of a spread of ratings? You feeling 90 plus? You feeling like, no, it's just a very good wine. It's up to 90, close to it. What do you guys think?
And mention, because if you look in the chat, Bubbles and Kiwi, or just Kiwi, I guess. Yeah. Oh, there's Bubbles. I didn't see him before. They want to know what everyone ate as a pairing with it too. So when you mention your score, especially Chris and Robin, because I know you guys normally choose to pair. Yeah.
Yeah, we made steak au poivre tonight and smashed potatoes.
Which steak au poivre is brandy cream sauce.
Nice.
Yes. To define that.
Yeah, peppered steak. I think so. I'd be interested to know, when they're grading these, are you grading them against essentially the style? So essentially, if you're thinking this is a California cab, this does not taste like a California cab, therefore do you get docked points or not? I like this more than I like most California cabs. I think that the middle and the lower descriptions I thought felt the most accurate to me. And I'm like, yeah, the way you describe that feels about right. So I think like an 88, 89 feels about right, where I'm like, this is unusual. It's interesting. It's very, very good. I'm not sure if like if someone's like, I love California cabs, would be like, here, have this. Because I think they'd be like, oh, well, what is this? I'd be like, well, it's good, it's interesting, it's fun, have it. But I'm not sure if that's like 100% what they would be looking for.
Okay. Yep.
Well, okay. So is it compared to California cab, or is it because he's asking, is it docked for not tasting like a California cab?
The thing is, that is not part of what you have to decide on.
Okay.
You can decide, either way, Chris. You could, you're going to have, and I think that might be the split, even what we saw tonight. Maybe that was what the reason he gave that one in 87. He said, well, I'm comparing this to California cabs and it doesn't taste like most California cabs. Maybe that's why he went 87. And then the wine enthusiast, if I remember correctly, was the 93. They might have been saying, look, I love the fact that I've got the power of California matched with the or the power of Bordeaux, whichever way you want to look at it, matched with the richness of Washington. That's really cool. That's why I'm extra excited about it. Neither one is right or wrong, because there is nothing that is demanding that you put it in a certain hierarchy of. It's subjective on what the hierarchy should be.
Okay.
See, for example, like with me, which I won't say for sure, but I'm excited by the fact that I've got that Washington State richness with some of that Napa Valley power. I think that was really cool. So it elevated my interest.
Sure.
But at the same time, I can
See, I'm all about that.
Yeah. I can also see the argument
it's a Washington Cab Sav to me, and that's why I like it.
But I can totally see the argument if you're saying, well, if I'm drinking Californian, it wasn't what I expected. Like, I totally get that too. Like there is no right or wrong answer on there. So we're seeing, what do we have here?
We have
read them
88, Les Lewis 88, and then Rachel said a 91, and David said a 92. They haven't eaten yet. And then Tucker, cheese, smoked Gouda, Havarti, dill, Manchego, how do you say that? I don't know. Manchego, thank you. Just cheese, blame John.
I love it.
And Bubbles 90, Kiwi 91, and Laurel and Brenda, we give it a 91, and they had steak and mushrooms.
Nice.
Perfect pairing. Yeah. And then, Kiwi loved the tannins. So we've got 89, loved using the aerator, 90, just so I can be higher than Sean. Then it's okay, John, like the anise aspects.
Yeah.
And the anise aspect is good. And so, for me, I would have done 91, 92. I really like it.
Good.
So, but I can see, like, it's interesting because we've got almost the range because we're going from 88 to 92, not quite the range of 87 to 93, but almost.
And
the same as the different critics.
Right. And I totally support it. I go all the way through on there. I would give it more of probably pushing 91 for me. Because I really do I like the anise that's coming out. When I drink Napa Valley Cab, you're not going to get anise. You get more of a lavender cedar thing, which I love too. I'm not saying, but I do love that fun. Oh, wait, we've got a raised hand.
Yes, we do. Okay.
All right.
Hey, sorry. So kind of to follow up off of Chris and Robin's question about, are they judging it against other cab savs? Watching that Somm series, and they're doing that blind tasting, and they say, oh, well, this is a whatever Sav or Cabernet, but it's not from California. Well, if it is a California, then it was bad, right? Or, I mean, how?
No, it doesn't make it bad. It just makes it out of the ordinary. So, and then some people will say out of the ordinary, but pleasing is a bonus. And some people might say, no, it's outside of standard. But
when you're doing the Somm, the blind tastings, though, you're doing it to be something that is like
representative of that.
Right?
Oh, no, right. So when they do the tastings, until you get to the end, they are making it to the standard that you would expect. So they would not serve you this wine as a blind taste in order to get my my certified or the advanced.
Okay.
But when you get to the master level, you're expected to know the exceptions.
Okay. Wow.
Which I think it's a matter of almost luck at that point, because I don't even understand how you could be prepared for exceptions that don't taste like what it should be.
So then when the wine rater is given this wine, they're like, this is a California Cab Sav. And then they taste it and they go, it's pretty good for a California Cab Sav.
Right. Yeah, they know what's coming, and so, and I think that was probably the reason for the split. Is the one guy saying, like me, I love that it's not like every other wine. I
Yeah.
love that it tastes more like a combo of different regions of the world. And then you have another guy saying that doesn't taste like what a California Cab Sauv should be. What's going
Right.
on here? It's just north of Napa. It should remind me of Napa. So.
Yeah, so it's just what their bias is toward what they
Mhm.
think, I like the exception or I don't like the
Right.
exception.
Yeah.
Right, which is why I was talking to Paul and and I was saying, I wonder if in the ratings, it's hard to separate your bias. So you have, I wasn't sure if when you provide a rating as as a wine expert, if there are certain characteristics or tiers, things that you look for, or, because I know for me, it's hard for me to separate. So part of me wants to say, oh, I would give this rating for a cab, but like, for me personally, like, I prefer this, so I would give it this, so this to me is like a 91 or a 90. It's really good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed many things about it. I found it very balanced. Is it the best wine I've ever had? No. But then I think back and I go, oh God, I just rated it against like my favorites, so kind of, do the experts do that as well? Or are there certain things that they look for, like color and a level of acidity depending on the grape, et cetera. So I didn't know if there was like a hard list or almost like a set of objectives that they look at, or if it's purely subjective on what they feel at that moment, So that's
Yeah.
what we're going back and forth on.
Right. Yeah, no, it's you're right. There's certainly an extent of subjectivity to it. Certainly they're going to look at it and look at the colors like, well, look, it's a cab. I should not be able to see through it easily. It should be fairly rich. It should have some grip. If it's going to be a good cab, it needs to have some tannins. But there's going to be a range, but it shouldn't be just flabby or something like that. And
so there is kind of a rubric that they follow, but then
Right.
then there's a subjective element to it
Yeah.
that they stray from based on whatever they feel is.
right. I think
Yeah.
it's probably fairly strict in their mind of, is this well grown and well vinted that will get you up to an 86. They're like, okay.
Mhm.
Is this crap or is this pretty good?
Mhm.
Okay, if it's pretty good, we're starting at 86 and moving up from there based on its own character.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then Kiwi has her hand raised.
Kiwi.
Hey, so I'm really glad that we did this one because it really turned me in a different direction for a cab. Because I always feel like we talked about the bite and everything. And I wonder if it's because we decanted it and let it breathe for a little while. It made such a difference. I do question though. So I totally had blackberries and blueberries in my house, and I like put one on one side and the other, and I like tried it, and I was like, it doesn't taste like either. So what am I missing when it comes to finding other notes? Because I felt more a deeper fruit, but I literally blackberry wine, nope. Blueberry wine, no. So how is it just time developing a palate for something like that? Because I felt that I wasn't able to catch the fruit part.
Hmm.
Or is it just personal preference?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, the thing is, this is more like, black cherry
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, black cherry, not
yeah.
blackberry. Never mind. We'll start there. Okay.
Yeah, but I do think it's
I
developing a palate for it
Yeah.
too, and then I think there's a part to it which Jeff and I go back and forth with, but I think there is I think you can develop your palate, but I think it's kind of like your voice. You can develop a voice to be better, but you can't have a phenomenal voice without being born with a phenomenal voice. Jeff happens to have a phenomenal palate. I'm never going to taste what he tastes.
How he does.
Right. Yeah. And
I really liked this one though. Yeah, no, and I get that. So I guess I'll just have to kind of tweak my brain and thinking it when you say it, really kind of think outside the box. Right. So I feel like when I think flavors, I'm so specific. Even when you talk about like the peppery stuff, I'm kind of like, do I know?
No, for me, I've gotten so much better over the past year from doing these tastings. But I'm just never going to take, he's a super taster and I'm not. And that's just a fact. You know, some people, you do that paper test and some people it tastes bitter or whatever, and it tastes like paper to me because I'm not a super taster. So I mean, I've developed it more, but I'm never going to be where he is. So I don't think like when you are trying to taste it, that you should ever feel like, oh my gosh, if I'm not tasting what Jeff is tasting, then I'm wrong somehow, because he's always going to taste more nuances than I'm going to taste.
So that makes total sense. So I started without food, and then John surprised me with a steak gorgonzola and mushroom.
Oh, yes.
Guys, stop what you're doing and do that. Pick up another bottle and do it tomorrow because
wow, that's such a beautiful pairing.
So what I heard was John's cooking for everyone tomorrow.
Right.
Done. So, and the tannins, I think, because I liked the tannins here, is because it was such a big wine.
Right.
And it's just so interesting that I've literally merged from like red blends into like, it is a wine. So I'm done. Okay, thanks, Lee.
Awesome. Well, and pairings really help. I mean, obviously this is a big wine. I mean, it's going to be optimal with pairings. It's not a porch sipper. It's a big wine that's got a lot to express and a lot going on. And I like that about it. It's got a lot to enjoy. And, the bottom line is there's a lot to think about and talk about with it, which is one of my favorite parts about well-made wine. Is there can be a conversation, and we can have a spectrum of responses because it's got something to say. So yeah, it's not just, oh wow, those are berries and they made me drunk, yay.
Well, we're not in college anymore, so there you go.
Exactly. So all right,
I have an interesting.
Wait, you went off and on, Jerry.
I'm going to go down to the bottom. Yeah, I have an interesting problem with, I'm not much of a fruit eater. Grew up in the tropics. Bananas and mangoes maybe, and avocados, but I know what they taste like. But like people with music, you hear something you like and you have to stop and think, well, why? And how do I tell you I like it? And sometimes you really have to pay. Some wines I really like, but I really have to stop and think about why. Dark wines, if you guess currant or black cherry, you're pretty much in the ballpark.
Right. Yeah.
Get into some of these other things, blackberries, blueberries, tamarinds, or whatever, and you got to be a little more critical, I think.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. When you get to something where some of this, and you're like, oh well, I'm getting some red plum combined with pink peppercorn. Well, that's awfully specific and absolutely not where you have to get to. But it's just reminders, it's things that are okay, this is coming across my palate. It's just, those are bonus little moments of thinking of flavors. It's not the broad strokes, and you can enjoy every wine. Well, you can enjoy really well-made wines with the broad strokes.
Well, and I agree with Jerry too. When you grow up like with, especially like South Florida, the tropics, in Key West, the Caribbean. I mean, you're growing up more with mango and coconut and papaya and things like that, rather than the blackberries and blueberries and things.
Like some of the stuff we do, a good imagination helps too.
And thank you, Les, for coming. No, anybody who has to hop off, feel free to hop off. We're about to close it up, actually.
Right, let's go to next week's wine.
Okay.
So we were waxing a little fantastic, but that's okay. All right, so we are back to the white side. So remember when I said you only had yourselves to blame because you asked me this when we were drinking the Owl and the Dust Devil. So anyway, next week we're going back to Argentina, to enjoy their dominant white grape, the Torrontés. So Torrontés grape, everyone said, I've never had it. And I said, well, yes, shut. So here's a really nicely made Torrontés. Torrontés is one of those grapes like Pinotage, where it can be made really poorly and really cheap and really well. And it has these great qualities to it. It might shock you that I chose a good one, but anyway, perfect wine also to keep in mind as we're moving into the summer. Great white wine. Oh, look at that. I didn't delete the word steak.
I was like, how do we have steak and coconut curries? That was my question. So ignore the steak.
Ignore the steak.
That was, as soon as you stopped talking, I was gonna be like, and how does this go together?
Hey, look, you know what? I'll drink, I'll eat steak with anything. How
See,
about
I
that?
have learned something. White and steak?
You know,
what?
coconut curries. You know what would be amazing with this would be that that curry lobster and shrimp at Volcanic. Oh man, that would be amazing. Thai peanut sauce dishes, poultry, fish, and tofu. Light. It's a light white, but it has actually character and depth to it. So it can handle a little spice and everything. It's really a delicious grape. We will enjoy that together next week if you choose to join us, and I hope you will.
Okay. So, any last comments before we turn off the recording?
Yes, we were very silent and we're sorry, but of course, Jeff, when I bought the wine last week for this week, Jeff goes, I have 2 words for you. Yeah. You're welcome. And he was right. This is right up my alley. Amazing. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, guys. I'm glad you liked it.
Cheers,
cheers everybody.
What's the food truck lineup?
The